Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unraveling a terrifying multi-year medical puzzle. It's a gripping case that started with something as seemingly harmless as swollen fingers and ended with a man's brain completely shutting down. Buckle up, because this is an absolutely wild ride through the hidden vulnerabilities of the human body.
So, let's dive right into this bizarre case. Picture a 49-year-old guy, we'll call him K. He was just bouncing in and out of emergency rooms with these totally baffling symptoms. His local hospital was so completely stumped that they literally wrote in his chart that no one there ever found out why any of these things were happening. They desperately needed a clue to stop this invisible enemy that was just ravaging his body from the inside out.
To truly solve this mystery, we need to put on our detective hats and trace K's chronological timeline, because this nightmare didn't actually begin with his brain. It started 5 whole years earlier when his body dramatically overloaded with fluid. He woke up incredibly bloated, his wife was jokingly calling his hands sausage fingers, and his legs felt like literal memory foam. Years later, this crazy fluid buildup started severely impacting his heart, which eventually led up to him getting these mysterious itchy welts after a hiking trip.
Now, going back to the initial fluid overload, doctors ran some blood tests and discovered a terrifying reality. His white blood cells had basically gone rogue. They'd created antibodies designed to destroy his very own kidneys. Because of this, his kidneys were shutting down and leaking vital proteins, leading to a diagnosis of membranous nephropathy. Essentially, his own internal defense system had completely turned against him.
To save his kidneys from total destruction, his doctors had to pull out all the stops. Over the years, they administered 4 incredibly intense immunosuppressing medications. We're talking heavy steroids, medicines to block gene signals, drugs to stop cell growth, and they even used chemical inserts to totally invalidate his white blood cell DNA. They completely depleted his rogue immune defenses. And sure, this aggressive treatment saved his kidneys, but it left the castle gates completely unguarded. Then, a few months after a hiking and hunting trip, K.A.'s symptoms radically shifted. We aren't talking about his kidneys anymore. Out of nowhere, he felt like a hammer was smashing into the left side of his skull. He developed such severe light sensitivity he needed an eye mask and earplugs just to exist, and his speech became completely garbled and nonsensical. The attack had officially moved to his brain.
Over the next 4 months, K's life turned into a terrifying time loop. He visited the exact same hospital 7 times. He'd have these sudden staring spells, temporary amnesia, and right-sided facial drooping. Clinically, it looked exactly like he was suffering from a series of strokes. Yet every single time they ran a brain scan, it came back perfectly normal. No stroke. Nothing.
Realizing they were missing something massive, a doctor finally transferred K to an elite research hospital across the city. By the time he actually arrived, his cognitive decline was just staggering. During a mental status exam, he couldn't even name the days of the week backwards. And when they asked him a super simple math question, what is 9 quarters, he confidently calculated it as $4.25. His mind was just slipping away. The new medical team didn't waste any time. They immediately performed a spinal tap, and what they found was super alarming: lymphocytic pleocytosis. Basically, his cerebral spinal fluid, which should be crystal clear, was cloudy and yellow. It was absolutely flooded with a massive quantity of white blood cells. This meant that despite all those heavy immunosuppressants he took for his kidneys, his body was desperately trying to fight off a massive, unknown infection. Now, the extreme danger K was in comes down to a crucial distinction. The doctors realized he didn't just have meningitis, which inflames the protective membrane but actually leaves your brain function intact. No, Kea had meningioencephalitis. The inflammation had penetrated the actual brain tissue itself. That is exactly why he couldn't talk, couldn't think, and couldn't respond. His brain was quite literally being cooked by the swelling. Because meningoencephalitis pathogens are notoriously hard to isolate, and K was screaming at the lights in sheer agony, doctors had 0 time to wait for slow lab tests. They deployed a blind shotgun treatment strategy. They hit him with an antiviral medicine, 3 different heavy-duty antibiotics, and B vitamins for his deteriorating nervous system. They just had to fire everything they had in their arsenal and hope one of those medications hit the hidden target.
And here's where things get wild. The crucial pivot happened on hospital day 3. After days of cognitive darkness, K just opened his eyes, stretched, and walked around like nothing had ever happened. His memory? Totally restored. He passed his cognitive tests flawlessly, correctly stating that 9 quarters is in fact $2.25. This miraculous turnaround proved that one of those blind medications had actually worked. But what exactly was the medication fighting? To figure that out, doctors systematically crossed off the usual suspects that matched tick and mosquito exposure in the Northeast. They checked for West Nile virus, syphilis, and herpes, which all came back completely negative. Given his outdoor hiking and those welts on his legs, Lyme disease was obviously the prime suspect. But surprisingly, repeated tests for Lyme disease came back entirely negative too.
This left the elite medical team at a complete impasse. Think about it. If it wasn't Lyme disease, what on earth was it? Kay had been hiking, he had mysterious bug bites, he had visual floaters, and he clearly responded beautifully to antibiotics. All the clinical puzzle pieces fit perfectly together, yet all the standard laboratory tests completely failed to give them an answer.
Then came the massive aha moment. They looked back at his past. Remember those intense medications he took for his kidney disease? Well, they had so heavily suppressed his immune system that it delayed his body's ability to form antibodies. This completely screwed everything up for the testing labs. Ka simply wasn't producing the chemical breadcrumbs that standard clinical tests rely on to actually trigger a positive result.
Refusing to give up, this high-powered academic lab ran some incredibly deep genetic sequencing on his fluids. They were looking for something exceptionally rare, and they found it. They discovered a secret pathogen that had been quietly migrating across the globe for decades. We're talking tracing its lineage from unknown fragments in Japanese ticks back in 1995 to human cases in Russia in 2009, right up to the first described U.S. case in 2012.
The culprit, finally unmasked, was Borrelia miyamotoi. It's a highly rare tick-borne bacteria that's actually closely related to the one that causes Lyme disease. It has the terrifying power to cause severe neurological illness, but because it is so rare, it completely lacks standard clinical lab tests. This invisible bacteria slipped right past Kay's nuked immune system and traveled all the way up to ravage his brain.
Section 2. Protecting your own health. Let's move to our final takeaways and see how this builds into an urgent lesson for all of us.
Because these secret bacteria variants are nearly impossible to test for clinically in a standard hospital, aggressive physical prevention in endemic areas is absolutely your best defense. Seriously, when you're outdoors, apply insect repellent. Wear long-sleeve shirts and pants. When you get inside, thoroughly check your body, your gear, and your pets. And if you do see an attached tick, remove it immediately. Just don't wait.
Kay's harrowing journey proves a really vital point. Our bodies are incredibly robust and naturally try to keep us balanced, but navigating a complex medical system, that requires relentless self-advocacy. If you know deep down that something is wrong and the standard tests say you're fine, you must advocate for yourself. You have to seek out the specialists who are willing to look a little deeper beneath the surface.
So, I'll leave you with this provocative question today, to remind you that your health is hands down your most precious asset. It's so easy to just trust the very first negative test result. But as we clearly saw with Kay, that test might just be looking for the completely wrong footprint. Sometimes, to survive, you just have to be the lead detective in your own medical mystery. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and stay safe out there.